If you are an authentic masculine man listening to this podcast, it's time for you to take some action. It's time for you to stop sitting down and watching 5 hours of Netflix every night and do something about it. Go talk to another man. Encourage them to live in their true masculinity. Say something. When somebody does something that is not right, that is not moral, that is not loving, that is not compassionate, that is not courageous, speak up. Don't be weak. Don't be like the weak men that we see every single day in the media, TV shows, movies, you name it. Do not add to that. Be strong, show strength, show courage, show compassion, be clear, be courageous.
Welcome to the Derelict Podcast for the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way. We're talking about the scary part of the journey where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
Hello. It's currently Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. You are viewing this episode on Thursday, July 25th, if you're viewing it when it comes out. 3 days ago, on July 13th, 2024, former President Donald Trump narrowly survived an assassination attempt. Why do I bring this up on the Derelict Podcast? What does this have anything to do with what we're talking about? Well, I've been thinking a lot about this podcast and what I want the future of it to be. I've been thinking a lot about why I started this podcast, the vision that I had, and honestly, the passions and visions I've had for my life since I can remember. Since I was a little child, I've had a concern for men, boys, obviously boys as a child. I've been concerned that boys live as boys and that men live as men. I've been concerned about true masculinity, not toxic masculinity, not abusive masculinity, but true, healthy masculinity. I've been thinking a lot lately about how I want this podcast to help derelict dudes rediscover healthy masculinity in their own lives. I normally do not record this podcast and then air it so quickly, but I've been thinking a lot since the assassination attempt 3 days ago. Now, before you get concerned, this is not going to be a political podcast. We're not going to be talking about if President Trump is a better selection or President Biden is a better selection or Republicans or Democrats or anything else. I'm more concerned about men. I'm more concerned about in society today what is happening to men. I spent very little time preparing for this because I just wanted to speak from my heart. I spent about 5 minutes thinking about what I wanted to say today. And I want it to come out right away because if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, the one that came out on, July 18th, last week, please go listen to that first. I had the special privilege of Nikki Ballou joining us, who has a real heart for true masculinity as well. Now, it was a great conversation. I didn't agree with everything he said, and that's part of being a man. Part of being a man is having a conversation with someone. Part of being a man is not disagreeing with them and then trying to kill them with a bullet or by any other means. Again, this is not about whether you agree with President Trump. It is about the fact that we now live in a country, which has happened before, where people think that trying to kill someone they disagree with is healthier than having debate, courage, confidence, consistency, clearness, and having those conversations. We have a crisis in true masculinity in the world today. Whether you're listening or watching this as a woman or a man is immaterial. If you disagree, you haven't been paying attention. We have a major crisis in true masculinity today. Well, so today I want to talk about what is healthy masculinity. And I'm going to talk about ways that we've failed, ways that I've failed, ways that we've all failed as far as this goes. Because my hope is that what this podcast and everything that I'm doing in my life can become is about showing men how to rediscover and live in their healthy masculinity. Some of you watching this are men that don't even know what that means. Some of you are women that don't even know what this means. Some of you don't think that that's possible. It is. There are healthy men all around us, and there are unhealthy men all around us. And all an unhealthy man is someone who is so broken, insecure, traumatized, whatever word you want to use, that they are not living out their true masculinity. So let's start with that. If we're going to talk about what healthy masculinity is, let's first start with what it's not. One of the shows that my kids and I have really loved to start watching is Young Sheldon. Why do I bring that up? Because as much as I enjoy the show, and Sheldon often reminds me of my own son, and his sister often reminds me of my own daughter, and his brother often reminds me of my other daughter, and his mom often reminds me of their mom. One thing about that show that's very consistent, turn on any TV show, and this is what you're going to see. You are going to see weak men. Men that do not stand up for themselves, men that do not have confidence, men that do not have clarity, men that allow themselves to be pushed around. Usually you see a bossy lady as the mom and a weak man as the dad. Young Sheldon is no exception. Take any TV show and prove me wrong. There might be one out there. But if you think of the most popular shows, you have cartoon shows like Family Guy or Simpsons, weak men as fathers. You have network shows like Young Sheldon or older ones, Everybody Loves Raymond. Anything else, fill in the blank. Weak men. Movies, you have abusive men. You have manipulative men. You have men that are trying to do what they want to do to forward their own agenda. That is not strength, that is weakness. Strength and weakness does not mean how strong you are. It does not mean how many hours you spend in the gym. What it means is, what are you doing with that strength? And what are you doing with that weakness? A man can be a man if he is physically weak. Let's say that he is a nerd. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I relate to nerds. Let's say he is a scrawny, wimpy, skinny nerd physically. Can he be a true man? Of course he can. It has nothing to do with physical strength. If that man is courageous, confident, clear, compassionate, and shows other manly traits, he is a man. This does not mean that somebody has to have physical strength. That is another thing that I think is lost in our society today. What about politics? I brought up Trump. Politics is filled with egotistical, narcissistic, weak men that are flip-floppers that will not stand behind the passions, convictions, and beliefs that they have. There are very few men in politics that have the strength to say what they believe, to stand behind it, and to move forward with it. What about macho men? Macho men. Some people say those are true men. Well, owning a gun or a truck or drinking a lot of beer does not make you a man. That is not true masculinity. Just working out more is not the sign of true masculinity. I'm so tired of these influencers that just talk all the time about getting your body in shape and spend 6 hours a day in the gym so that they can have a beautiful picture on Instagram, and they ignore their family, they ignore their friends, they do not make a contribution to society whatsoever. They go online, they work out, and they say, that's the way to be a true man. Bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. Don't believe it. The men that get online and say, do it no matter what the costs are. Fuck that. That's not a real man. Making a decision no matter what the costs are is not a real man. The man Let me be very clear here. Again, not getting political, but I'm going to be very clear here. The man that tried to assassinate President Trump was not living out of his true masculinity at all. There is nothing truly masculine about that. Now, you may sit there and say, hey, I'm anti-war, or I'm anti-shooting, or I'm anti-killing. No, I'm not. Not necessarily. But that does not show true masculinity. You trying to shut somebody up that you disagree with a bullet is not true masculinity. I have lost the respect of many people in the last 3 days online that have said something to the effect of, too bad that he missed. In other words, too bad he wasn't a better shot and now President Trump is dead. Why have I lost all respect for them? It's not because I'm a huge Trump supporter. I am not. I am not. It is because they think that the best way to move forward in life is to murder a former president. I don't care what side of the aisle you are on. That office should at least demand some sort of respect. He is not a dictator. Don't believe anyone that says that he is. He is not Hitler. That's fucking bullshit. Prove to me that he's Hitler or Mussolini or somebody else. Has he had millions and millions of people killed in a gas chamber? The fucking ego that somebody would get online and say that he is worse than Hitler is fucking sane. You should never listen to a person like that. By the way, this goes both ways. This is not a rant against Democrats. Don't get me wrong. They are equally evil when people are not living in their true masculinity. Equally evil are the Republicans that will say the same thing about Biden or Obama or anybody else. So again, let me be clear here. This is not a Republican versus Democrat conversation. This is are you following true masculine men or not? Are you living out your true masculinity or not? Dictators around the world who will remain nameless for the sake of this podcast, who are murdering and committing genocide, are not living out of their true masculinity. I don't give a shit what side of politics you're on. Whether it's Russia versus Ukraine, it's Israel versus Palestine. If there is a ruler or there are people that are murdering and committing genocide against other people simply because of the fact that they're different than them, that is wrong. That is not true masculinity. Tell me I'm wrong. This is going to be, people are not going to like this episode. There's going to be certain people because they're going to say, well, no, this side is always right. That is not true. That is not true. So, now that I'm done with my rant, let's take this down a notch. I'm very concerned for our world. Without sounding like an old man right now, which that's a relative term. I'd be very old if it were 200 years ago and the average life expectancy was around my age at 40, then I'd be a very old man. Today, I'm not. I'm in great shape. I'm 40. I hopefully have a long life to live. Another 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. I don't know. Here's what concerns me, however, as a 40-year-old man who is trying to live out my truest masculinity. I'm very concerned for our world today. Now, is our world any different than it's ever been? No. C.S. Lewis has a term called chronological snobbery. He refers to that term when somebody in a current generation will say that it's better or, worse than previous generations. When somebody says, oh, things just keep getting worse, they weren't like that in my day, etc., that is chronological snobbery. That is not what I'm saying here. I am not saying that this world is any worse than the world we've lived in the past. I think it's pretty easy to prove this point. We are not in the middle of a world war. That would seem to be worse. We in America are not in the middle of a civil war. That would seem to be worse. There are genocides happening around the world, but there have always been genocides happening around the world. It's just now we see more of it because of media, but we only see some of the genocides. We only see some of the genocides. We don't see any genocides that are happening in Africa right now on the news in the United States, but we see all the genocide as far as Russia and Ukraine is concerned. Why? Because we pick and choose whatever we're concerned with. That, again, is not true masculinity. So why do I bring this up, and why am I on this soapbox? Because here's my goal. Here's my hope. Here's my desire. And I hope you'll join me. Will the real men please stand up? I am so sick and tired and exhausted from weak men attempting to rule the world. I am so tired of weak, narcissistic, egotistical, manipulative men giving manhood or masculinity a bad name all around. That is not masculinity. That is not true masculinity. Where are the real men? Where are they? So you might ask, well, what is a real man? Or what is living out true masculinity? I've thought about this a lot. I am no subject matter expert. What I'm saying here is always all opinions. It's a podcast. Don't come to this and say, oh, this is him reading the encyclopedia. This is just my opinions. We all have our opinions. One way I thought about how would I think of real manhood? Well, I went back to something that I've used in the past, which is not about masculinity at all. In fact, there are 8 C's in internal family system therapy developed by Richard Schwartz. These 8 C's, what he says is that if you are living in these 8 C's, you are living out your true self. I will include a link to the 8 C's again in the show notes. We've talked about them before on this podcast. I will include them again. I think that they're good to review. Here they are very quickly. Courage, compassion, confidence, calm, curious, clear, creative, and connected. He says that if you are living out these 8 C's, you are living out your true self. Now, is this only for masculinity? No. Is this only for men? No. This is for all of humanity, according to Dr. Schwartz. But let's walk through these, because I think from my perspective, this is what I'm calling you as a man to step up to. Let's just start with courage. These are in no particular order. We live, in my opinion, in a society that is full of fear, anxiety, and there isn't a lot of courage. Courage does not mean that you stand up and you shoot someone like the assassination attempt, on Trump, the person that tried to kill him. That is not courage. There is nothing there about courage. None whatsoever. Who did have courage? Many people are going to disagree with this. But here's what I would see. I saw this happen on live TV. I very, very, very rarely watch live TV. Very rarely watch the news. I try to stay out of it. I try to keep my head focused on what my head is to be focused on. I would encourage you to do the same. If you are somebody who constantly watches news, stop. What value is that bringing out of your life? Seriously, what value is it bringing out of your life to know where a murder is happening or where a war is happening if you're not going to do anything about it? If you're not going over to the war to help people, why the fuck are you watching it? Just to live with more fear and anxiety? And then to become another weak man in our society that looks at things and says, oh my goodness, I don't know. Here's where I saw courage. Trump showed a tremendous amount of courage 3 days ago. And before you disagree with me, if you are liberal, Democratic, love Biden, hate Trump, whatever, if you could set all that aside for a moment, because again, I'm not being political here. If you were a former president of the United States giving a speech, or just giving a speech in general, and you got shot in the ear, almost in your head, almost dead, what would be your reaction? Be honest. Would you even want to stand back up again? Or would you just want to lay down? Be completely honest with yourself. What would Biden's reaction have been? I don't know if he ever would have gotten back up again. The guy can't walk off a stage. How could he possibly do that? And again, sorry, not trying to get political here. But what did he do? He got hit. He stood up. He told Secret Service, hold on, don't move. He lifted his fist and he said, fight. Love him or hate him, how do you not respect that response? That was courage. I don't know if I have the courage to be able to do that. Again, this is not about Trump. Love him, hate him, think he's evil, think he's wonderful. It's not about that. It's about the fact that that was a sign, whether you agree or not, that was a sign of true masculinity. That was a sign of courage. And again, maybe you think he's an evil person. Fine. That was still a sign of courage. Evil people can still be courageous. Now, that's not living out true masculinity, but that was a sign of courage. So let me ask you a question. Are you being courageous today? What do you need to be more courageous with? My license plate says courage on it. Why does it say courage on it? Because when I went through the most difficult time of my life, when I was going through my divorce, I was separated, had very limited access or ability to see my children, my business was failing, I was broke, I had no money, I felt like I lost all of my friends, I lost my church, people villainized me. It was a rough time. Why am I saying that? I'm not saying that to be a victim. If you listened to my podcast a couple of weeks ago, we've talked about being a victim versus a victor. That's not what I'm saying. The reason I'm mentioning all of this is that when I was at my worst, someone, something, different mentors, different people that were speaking into my life, what I could see that I needed most was courage. I put it on the back of my car so that every single time I get in my car, it reminds me to have courage. Courage does not mean jumping in front of a bullet. It could mean jumping in front of a bullet. But courage could simply mean, what is that thing that you want to say to someone that you're just not saying? Now, does this mean that you're going to be an asshole and a dick about it? No, absolutely not. But do you have the courage to say it? Do you have the courage to say it if everything around you tells you it's not polite, or it's not PC, it's not politically correct, or it doesn't align with everyone else's beliefs around? Does that matter? No. Do you have the courage to say it? So often I do not. But I feel, again, that I am not a Trump supporter. I would not call myself that at all. But for whatever reason, this assassination attempt woke up a fire within me that I don't want to let go, because I started realizing I am failing at courage. I do it every day. There's something that I feel should be said. I just don't want to fight it. I don't want to get into an argument. I don't want to get into a debate. I try to stay offline for the most part because of this. I only added social media accounts again to increase traffic for this podcast, to get this out to more people, to try to get the message out to help all of you. That's my goal here. My new goal, which will not change, is that I want you as a man to rediscover your true masculinity. And by the way, if you are watching this or listening to this as a woman, give me an amen. You want to know why? Because if men around you started acting with true masculinity, with courage, with compassion, with confidence, being calm, staying curious, being clear-minded, creative, and connected, how much better would your life be? Is there anything within that that does not sound helpful to you as a woman? If you are married, or you have a child, or you have a parent, or you have a grandparent, or you have a friend, or you have a best friend, and whoever that person is, that man started acting in these ways, would your life improve? I would have a hard time believing it wouldn't. If it wouldn't improve, send me an email. Email's always in the show notes. Let me know. If it would improve, I'd love to hear that as well. But prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that your life would not improve. Question. Would your life be better if the men around you had courage, compassion, confidence, calm, curious, clear, creative, connected, if they were like that? Or if they were a man acting as a teenage girl, doing posts online, pretending to be a little teenage girl playing with Barbies? Which would improve your life? Ask yourself that question. Ask yourself that question. I'm not getting into the legitimacy, illegitimacy of trans. We could do an entire episode on that. That's not what I'm discussing. What I'm discussing right now is which would make your life better. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself if in a time where you need somebody to be courageous, stand up for you, love you, be compassionate with you, be clear with you, etc., which would be better? Someone that's willing to take a bullet for you, that shows courage and compassion, is clear-hearted, or somebody that thinks that they are a teenage girl playing with dolls? Which is it? If it's the former, which I'm 100% sure it is, if it's the former, first of all, please encourage the men in your life. Listen to this episode. I hope it speaks to them. I hope it rises a fire within their heart the same way it has with me. Have them listen to this. Encourage them to live out these things. Do not fall into what the main part of society and media and everything else is doing right now. Do not fall into the trap of saying that if a man is acting like a man or a man is acting masculine, that it's toxic masculinity. That's fucking bullshit. We talked about it last week with Nikki. He had a very good point with this, and he said there's no such thing as toxic masculinity, which I would agree with. What I think instead, are there men who are abusive? 100%. Are there men that beat people up and shoot people and murder people and everything else? 100%. Are there men that are manipulative, that are deceitful, that have many evil actions? Absolutely. That is not toxic masculinity, because guess why? Those men are not living out of their masculinity. They're not. They're living out of, honestly, hate for themselves. That's where that all comes from. It comes from fear. It comes from anxiety. It comes from resentments. It comes from a false ego, a narcissistic view and belief of themselves. It comes from insecure, weak, codependent, enmeshed men. And I, frankly, have had enough of that. I'm tired of seeing that. So will you join me? Will you be part of the crew? Will you be part of the revolution for real men to live out their true masculinity? If you're a man right now and you're listening to this and you're like, well, I am. Good for you. Can you get a next level up? I'm going to. I'm fully committed to next level up right now. Take a breath with me. Here's my heart. I firmly believe that fear, anxiety, anger, being inoffensive, being PC, being politically correct are what rule the day right now. At least they rule the day as far as media is concerned, as far as news is concerned. Let's get away from that. Can we get back to true, authentic, healthy masculinity? Can we get back to think of the most healthy man you know? If it's yourself, you might be it's probably not the answer. Think of the healthiest man you know. He's probably courageous. He's probably compassionate and kind. He probably will speak up when he needs to speak up. He's probably clear in his speech. He's probably calm. He's probably curious. He's probably creative. And he's probably connected and able to connect to others. Now, does that mean that he never gets angry? Of course not. Does that mean that he never is selfish? Of course not. Does that mean he's ever not easy to be understood? Of course not. I'm all of those things. There's probably multiple episodes you listen to. You're like, I don't know what the fuck that guy's talking about. Fine. But are those things ruling the day? Is that how that man is living his life? And let me speak briefly to the women that are listening to this. If that's the man you want, encourage them to be that man. One of the most beautiful things from my experience about women around me, whether that is my mom, my sister, my daughters, my friends, my wife back in the day, girlfriends, whoever, are the ones that are encouraging and loving and supportive for me to be a man. It brings an incredible amount of joy and peace and satisfaction and encouragement for me to be able to live out those traits. Do I fail? All the fucking time. Do I want to do better? 100%. I want to live out those traits, and I hope you do as well. So, I'm sure we'll do several other podcast episodes on the same exact topic, but this is just me speaking from my heart today based on the occurrence that we've already talked about. So how do we get back to our roots? How do we get back to healthy masculinity? I would say the first thing is to stop believing the lying, manipulative bastards out there that tell you that masculinity is not healthy, that tell you that all of masculinity is toxic, that focus on toxic masculinity, evil masculinity, how we only need femininity. That is wrong. We need both. We all have feminine and masculine traits. So women show masculine traits, women show feminine traits. Men show masculine traits, men show feminine traits. Majority of men have more masculine traits built in them than feminine traits. Majority of women have more feminine traits built in them than masculine traits. Generally speaking, from my experience and from all the research and everything that I've read so far, if that is not the case, it's usually because of some sort of trauma, insecurity, something that somebody can't get past. If a man is acting primarily feminine, it's because of some sort of mental issues, illness, insecurity, etc. Vice versa with women. Prove me wrong on that. That's what all the research states, suggests, and I've found to be true in my own life. Now, does that mean that we should hate them or not have compassion for them or anything else? Absolutely not. Compassion is one of the things that we're talking about right now. I'm not calling people to be an asshole. I'm not supporting Trump in this podcast because he can be an asshole. Can't we all? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, do not believe the lie that is so prevalent in the world today that masculinity should be abolished, that true masculinity should not exist, because that weak men are the reason our world is in the situation that it's in. When weak men rule the day, the world has problems. So, how do we get back to our roots? How do we get back to true masculinity? Well, just a few things that I wrote down. Number one if you are a man, what men, specifically older, wiser men, are in your life. What mentors do you have? What coaches do you have? What therapists do you have? What people do you have that will not settle letting you live out a weak masculinity? They will encourage you to live out a true, strong masculinity. I find nothing wrong with women being mentors, coaches, therapists, etc. to men. So don't hear me wrong here. I don't find anything wrong with that. However, a woman can only teach you certain things. They cannot teach you how to be a man. How could they? Just like men can't teach women how to be women. It is in our own very DNA, our core. There's masculinity, there's femininity. We are born different despite what is happening in society today. This will be offensive to some. Fine, bring it on. Despite what's happening in society today, we are born different. Men need men to teach them, to guide them, to mentor them, to coach them. Women need women to mentor them, coach them, guide them, direct them. Now, can we learn from the other gender? Of course. If men only spend time with men, that is often where unhealthy, untrue masculinity comes from. If men are unwilling to listen and get encouragement and feedback and support and criticism from women, they are not a healthy man. Healthy men listen to women. Healthy men respect women. Healthy men love women. Healthy men have compassion for women. Healthy men are courageous for women. If they are not doing those things, they are not living out their true masculinity. So mentors, coaches. I have been coaching men almost my entire life. I can remember as a child being there and mentoring other children, specifically in a more formalized way. The very first time this happened was early on in high school, and I started mentoring some junior high boys. Then I went into college, continued to mentor junior high and high school boys. Then I started mentoring other college men. Then I started mentoring young men. And on and on and on we go. I have several men that I speak with every week. I mentor them, I guide them, I help them. Why do I say all this? I'm not saying this to put any sort of ego on myself. I'm not saying this to say that I am in any way special. I'm saying this because of the fact that I'm living what I'm asking you to do. Find a younger man and mentor them. If you are listening to this podcast and you're looking for some specific coaching and guidance, call me. Part of the new aspect that I'm formalizing now with the Derelict is a coaching program, individual coaching, group coaching, etc. Now, why would somebody listen to me? Whether you're my age, you're older, you're younger, why would you listen to me? Well, here's what I found. When I've been in other groups in the past, what I've found as far as mentors go is that they don't have to be smarter than you. They don't have to be better looking than you, more successful, more confident, none of this stuff. All they need is to be able to go through some shit, fail at it, get through the other side, and be able to share with you experience, strength, and hope. Stole those three from 12-step. If anyone here is listening that's in a 12-step program, you know that as a sponsor, which is a mentor to a sponsee, the only thing that is required is that you have gone through the steps yourself and you can provide experience, strength, and hope to someone else. I've mentored several men that are older than me. Not because I'm wiser and living a longer life, but only because I can provide to them experience, strength, and hope. Do you need some experience, strength, and hope? If you do, please email me. Right now, go to the show notes, click the email button, and say, curious about coaching, and just shoot it off to me. What I want this tribe to become is a tribe of men who are sick of all the bullshit happening in the world today and want to live out their true, healthy, confident, calm, compassionate masculinity. And they want to bring that as a strength. And they will not believe the media, society, friends, teachers, whatever, that are telling them that that's wrong or that that's evil somehow, because it's not. We need more men to stand up. We need more men to be authentically courageous, to live out the 8 C's. Do we not? Would our world not be in a better place if we could get rid of these egotistical, narcissistic, self-involved, manipulative men that are simply doing things for themselves or to fuck somebody else over? Let's rise up, men. It's time to rise up, men. If you are an authentic masculine man listening to this podcast, it's time for you to take some action. It's time for you to stop sitting down and watching 5 hours of Netflix every night and do something about it. Go talk to another man. Encourage them to live in their true masculinity. Say something. When somebody does something that is not right, that is not moral, that is not loving, that is not compassionate, that is not courageous, speak up. Don't be weak. Don't be like the weak men that we see every single day in the media, TV shows, movies, you name it. Do not add to that. Be strong, show strength, show courage, show compassion, be clear, be courageous. Call me out on it. If you see me doing something on this podcast, in the street, as we connect, wherever, call me out. Put it in the comments right now. Feel free. But what I'd rather you do, put in the comments what you want to do, or shoot me an email with what you want to do today to be a stronger, more courageous, calm, connected, compassionate, loving leader as a man. Tell me what you're going to do today to help encourage your kids to do this, especially your boys. Write something in the comments about how you're going to encourage a friend to do this. Maybe a partner, maybe a business partner, whoever it is. How are you going to encourage them to live a more true masculinity? So here's what you should expect. We have several episodes that are still coming out because, generally speaking, insider trick, you may or may not know this, usually people that record podcasts record them about 6 weeks out if it's a weekly podcast. So generally speaking, the podcasts you're listening to were recorded 6 weeks ago. That's just in general, at least my process. It's not everybody's process. This one is much quicker. You will hear this 1 week after I actually promote it. I would have promoted it this Thursday in 2 days. However, I already started the promotion for the other one. And I'm also very excited that you get to listen to Nikki's podcast first, and then you get to listen to mine as kind of a follow-up. So again, as a reminder, even though it's near the end right now, if you have not listened to the one from last week, go listen to it right now, please. But here's what you should expect in a few weeks from now, once all the other ones kind of go by the wayside. This podcast is going to continue to be for the derelict. It's going to continue to be for the disparaged, for the outcast, for the people that do not fit into society. But here's where the change is going to occur. It is going to be speaking primarily to men. I am a man. That's who I can speak to the best. I hope that women continue to listen to it and share it with the men that they know, but know that this, my goal, my desire, my hope is that we can rediscover healthy masculinity together. And if you're a woman, please keep listening because we want you. We want your encouragement. We want your support. We want your courage to help us be courageous and for us to live out the true masculinity we're called to, because it looks so different for every person, but there are similarities. Don't listen to the institutions, the media, somebody popular. Stop listening to actors, influencers, media people about what you should do with your life. Stop it. You have a very strong gut and intuition that you were born with. You were born with masculine traits. Figure out how to live them out better. And let's do it together. Can we do it together? It's time for the real men to rise up. We are derelicts. We are outcasts. We are disparaged from society because society does not want us to be men, because society is afraid of that, or society wants to hold us down. Society wants to do things for their own benefit. No longer. We are derelicts because we are men that are finding our true, authentic, masculine selves to make the world a better place. And that is always, every single time, that is always done by a derelict. Prove me wrong through history. When things have gotten bad and people have needed to step up, it's been from the fringe of society. And guess what? Every single time, people try to kill them. They try to shut them up. They try to say, no, that's not right. Every single time something has happened in society like that, that has occurred. So will you be courageous and compassionate and clear and kind and loving with me today? Will you say something if you need to say something? Will you start living even more as a truly masculine man? I hope so. I hope that you'll join me. I love you. I appreciate you. Please, as always, like, subscribe, read a comment, write a comment, send us an email, share this with another man. Please, my only request today is that you share this with another man so that we can have men that grow, that become truly masculine, loving men as we are born and made to be. Love you all. Please keep listening. Please keep supporting. We appreciate you. We're building a tribe here, and I'm so excited for it. Until next time.